Texas. All right. All righty.
Open it on my phone just to make sure.
Okay.
It's working.
Is it working? Hello?
Are we live?
Are we live? I'm in the group
live
now. Yay, we're live. Okay, that's great. Hi, folks. It's exciting to do this. Erin Mae, yay. Say something, Erin.
Hi. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Yes, the chant today is technology is my friend, technology is my friend, technology is my friend.
That's right.
And we're learning how to connect with all of you. This is exciting. So,
Yes.
Good morning. I'm DJ Hamouris, and this is Erin Mae Lewis.
Now, yay. Yes, that was me trying to make sure my phone wasn't making noise, but also so that I can look at the chat so I can see our friends when they hop on and
Yes.
say
Hi. So we're part of the production team for Dulcimoon, the women's. It's a virtual Dulcimer Festival. It's women led, but everybody's welcome. So we hope that some of everybody will check in that's interested in dulcimers, and. Erin Mae and I were just starting the conversation before I hit live, and I went, let's save this conversation for the live talk.
That's true. Because we immediately started going down the wonderful rabbit hole of ballads from a woman's perspective.
That's right.
That was a topic that was brought up when we were talking during the quarantine little vendor hour and introducing Dulcimoon for the first time, really publicly in a big way.
That's right.
And there's tons and tons and tons and tons of old ballads, lots and lots of murder ballads where they're from a man's perspective and the woman is brutally murdered and then the song ends.
That's right. Yes, there are not so many about women killing the men, although there is one, but I don't know it well enough to sing it yet. So I'll have to do that another time. Yeah, we were talking at the Quarantine 7.0 vendor hour. We had an incredible conversation with so many people who dropped in, mostly women, which was exciting. And we asked them what they wanted in the event, and this was one of the subjects that was, or topics that was mentioned. Songs. They didn't know a lot of old-time songs or traditional songs from a woman's point of view.
Yeah.
So we decided to make that the subject of today's meeting. But also, I would be remiss if I didn't say you want to check out Dulcimoon.com. And right now, we don't have anything more than a page that says who's teaching and what we're doing, and has our mission statement, but also there's this lovely little button that says donate. And we're trying to get enough funds to make this sustainable in the long term. If it takes off, we will hopefully make it an annual event. So there are lots of little gifts that we're giving if you do donate at different levels, and I'll show you one of them at the end of today's talk. So that's the promo here. Let me put the Dulcimoon.com in the chat, in the Zoom chat, and maybe Erin Mae, you might be able to put it in the.
It's in the Facebook chat.
Facebook chat.
I'm on it.
So you were starting to say that you found a whole article about murder ballads.
I found this delightful little article from sheshreds.com that is all about the history of murder ballads and how women began to flip the script and how kind of over time they may have been sort of used. I mean, they were like news telling, right? And they're the tabloid songs, and so that's kind of part of the backdrop of these murder ballads. And of course, we all know that like the news that's reported is always a little bit more dramatized than strictly necessary to tell the story. So you've got this dramatization of the stories, but the way they were sung, they were often used to like teach women a lesson, you know, to be good and chaste and quiet. And all the things, you know, right? Yeah. So, and then there was this kind of time period where women were like, nah. And so it was just a really lovely article that kind of traced some different history of where the ballads came from, and then how women started to just sing the ballads, maybe even the same ballads, but through a different lens. And you brought up actually the song Silver Dagger, which is the first one that came to my mind when I thought about a ballad from a woman's perspective. So it's this beautiful ballad about like, don't wake my mother. She's laying here right by my side with a silver dagger. And she says that I can't be your bride.
Right. I could sing it for us.
Do it. That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let me get my instrument here.
Love songs.
Yeah. And you were
my sister sang all the ballads in our little duo, so my singing of the ballads is rusty.
Okay. All right. Well. Don't sing love songs, you wake my mother. She's sleeping here, right by my side. And in her right hand, a silver dagger. She says that I can't be your bride. All men are false, says my mother. They'll tell you wicked loving lies. And the very next evening, they'll court another, leave you alone to pine and sigh. My daddy is a handsome devil. He's got a chain 5 miles long, and on every link a heart does dangle of another mate he's loved and wronged. Go court another tender maiden and hope that she will be your wife. For I've been warned, and I've decided to sleep alone all of my life.
Aww. Yay! So this morning I started doing some research about that song because I thought that's a song from a woman's perspective. Yeah, so it turns out that Joan Baez left out all of the verses that made it from a man's perspective. If you go back to some of the historical verses of Silver Dagger, it starts with a man comes to the girl's window and tells her that she needs to go wake up her mother and get permission to marry him. And it turns into, in some of them, sort of the forbidden love story where they both end up committing suicide instead of being forbidden to go off together, which is like totally different than the story you get when you listen to just the verses that Joan Baez sang in it, which are like beautiful and empowering and like, no, you go off on your way and find someone else to love because you're not going to take advantage of me. So that one I thought was a really cool example of like just flipping the script of a traditional ballad.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, all those murder ballads, the banks of the Ohio,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But the ones from the women's point of view are often, they involve trickery in various kinds. I came across, well, there's two songs that I have. One is called The Crafty Maid's Policy, and I got it from Frankie Armstrong's singing. And it's where there's a lot of double entendre there. There's a lot of sexual play in the conversation. Nothing is ever explicit, but it's implicit. And her using that with the men that she encounters. And that's pretty good. There's also Fleur of Northumberland, which is a border ballad, which when they talk about border ballads, they're talking about the border between England and Scotland. And there's the country that, or the county, whatever they call them in England, they used to be separate countries, was Northumberland. And Northumberland is right near the Wall of Hadrian, where the demarcation between England and Scotland lies. And it's not so much from a woman's point of view, but describing a situation wherein the young woman and her mother finally make it work out right.
Uh-huh.
What else did you find in your explorations?
Well, Silver Dagger and looking at the old verses and the forbidden love made me think of Clyde Waters, which is one of them that's on the Anais Mitchell Child Ballads album. Mm-hmm. And it's one where the woman has a dream that her lover has come to her door and her mother has turned him away. And she wakes up from the dream to discover that that actually did happen. And her mother tells her that she has already sent him on his way and told him that the daughter does not love him, and end of story. And she sneaks out and rides her horse after him, and they both end up drowning in the Clyde waters as it's flooding in the middle of this storm, and they drown together as star-crossed lovers. So they still die, but they die in love instead of she being murdered by her supposed lover.
Right. And what about Barbary Allen?
Mm-hmm.
Barbara Allen or Barbary Allen?
Yeah.
That's definitely from a woman's point of view, and it's Gene Ritchie's recorded it. It's a million recordings of it. The thing that is about that is it ends up being one of those things where she basically dies just because she decides she needs to die because this young man who loved her died of love for her. And I always got this, there's a lot of conversation about this. I always got this sense that she basically died of shame that this young man should die of love for her.
Aww.
You know,
Young Emily is another one that kind of shares that story where the man ends up crossing the father and is killed by the father, and
hmm
then the ending is ambiguous, but it sort of hints at young Emily
hmm
also in some way goes to meet her lover.
yeah. And isn't Tam Lin similar?
Oh, I don't know the story of that one.
Tam Lin, oh, it's a fairy ballad. It's the young woman, it's often called Carter Hall. It's definitely a child ballad. Um, and she goes off with Tam Lin in a mortal form, and she becomes pregnant. And I'm trying to think if it's that song or another one, but one of the pictures that I like best in it, the image that I like best, is where her father, who is, of course, some sort of royal, you know, king or whatever, he says, I want you to take off your kirtle and stand on the stone and turn to the side because I want to see if you're pregnant. And she is. And so he wants to know who did this woman? Who did this
Mhm.
girl? Because you're going to have to marry him. So I don't remember if it's that song or another. They all get confusing.
Right. They
But
they definitely share themes, these
hmm
songs
hmm
passed down. Another one that's from women's perspective is the Two Sisters, and that there's a lot of variations of that one. It's like the Twa Sisters is a variation, and the Dreadful Wind and Rain is a variation,
hmm
and they all start with two sisters who fall in love with the same man, and their jealousy ends up causing their demise. And so the older sister kills the younger sister. And then, depending on the end of the song, you get some different sagas that happen in kind of the ending of it. But my sister and I used to sing that one. And so we're singing about the two sisters, and we always joked that thankfully neither one of us ever fell for the same kind of guy. So we were safe. That was never going to happen to us. But the, the guy in the story gets off with nothing, no consequences whatsoever. But both sisters die.
it's that moralistic thing,
Right.
especially for old time stuff, old traditional stuff, that the woman's got to pay. Woman's got to pay. Yeah, the one that I do is um, sing the bank to the bonny broom, ba da 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 da. And the swans, they swim so lovely, something like that. So there's like two lines that are exactly the same, and the other two
Yeah.
lines of each verse tells the story. Honestly, there's like 25 verses to this thing. It's hard to
Yeah.
memorize.
Yeah. Yeah. Atwater and Donnelly have recorded a variation of that ballad,
Mm,
and my sister and I, we looked through a bunch of verses and then kind of pulled out the ones that we thought told a cohesive story in only 12 verses instead of 25.
that's right.
And then there's also a David Grisman and Jerry Garcia recording of the Dreadful Wind and Rain that
hmm
has the ending where they make a fiddle out of the younger sister at the end of it. So they make the fiddle out of her finger bones, and they make a bow out of her hair, and
Right.
I never realized that they were the same story until I recently was doing research on that one, and I was like, "Oh, it's all the same story."
Yeah. In the one that I do, her breastbone becomes a harp and her hair becomes the strings.
Ah, oh,
And the reason that they find out is that someone, the minstrel who found her in the mill pond dead, took her breastbone and her hair and created a harp. And then he sings at her sister's wedding with her former lover, and the harp sings what the sister did.
wow. Oh, there's some redemption in that ending.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe.
Magic, lots of magic, the mystery of things, I think, is part of what I love. And I love that it's attached to the women in these stories. And that, are these stories there because that's what happened? When I went back to college in my 40s, I took a class called Women in Myth and Prehistory. And one of the things that I learned is that even if women had power or a position to make things better for other women, often that wasn't what happened, because in order to do so, it would reduce their own status. And every woman needed as much position as possible just to get through life.
I've read that too.
Yeah, and it was an unusual woman who, like in Rome, they owned land and were able to they were able to own property on their own right, but that didn't mean that they treated the women slaves any better. They still had them. So it's just interesting to see what. We'll never know. But that's why looking at these myths, these songs, the trajectory of it is really interesting for cultural understanding.
Yeah.
So
I found one more that was really fun that was recorded by Jean Ritchie, actually. It's the Ballad of False Sir John. And in this one, the man comes to woo the woman and shows his hand at some point and somehow tells her that he's planning to shove her off the cliff and drown her in the river. And he asks her to take off each piece of clothing. And she says, well, turn around and close your eyes. No gentleman should see a woman naked. And I love it because Jean Ritchie sings naked. And it was sweet in the recording of it. And so while he's turned his back and closed his eyes, she shoves him over the cliff and into the river. And the last two verses have a parrot who watched the whole thing happen. And she ends by threatening the parrot to hold his tongue and telling the parrot, if it holds its tongue, that she'll make the parrot a cage of gold with spokes of ivory. Isn't that delightful?
Reasoning with a parrot. This always works.
I was like, how funny that a parrot made it into this ballad. So,
God.
False Sir John, I found a recording of it on YouTube, so I'll share that in the chat. But
that's great. That's great. How funny. That is funny. False Sir John. Well, I want to show something here. Hang on.
Oh, so in the chat on Facebook, Jesse was talking about a modern song called The Willow Tree by Heidi Talbot, where the maiden turns the table on a serial killers. And yeah, that actually sounds like a similar story, The Willow Tree, to the False Sir John one that Jean Ritchie sang. So
right.
Interesting.
And modern ones as well that have become staples. Angel from Montgomery. Now, what always fascinates me is that was written by John Prine. Whose head did he get into to write that song, to have it feel so authentic and real? I mean, I sing that song. I don't even know why I love it so much, but I do. It's every word, every note.
Yeah. John Prine was an incredible storyteller.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
He was. Almost every student I ever talk to or work with wants to learn and play Paradise.
Yeah.
Right? It's a great song, too. That one and the L&N stop here anymore are great environmental, modern 20th century environmental ballads, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've managed to talk for 25 minutes.
I know. You get started on a topic as good as women in murder ballads, and man, you can...
Goes. So I just wanted to share something here. Let's see if I can get a good look on the camera. This is one of the pick boxes that we have as a gift for our founding donors. That's our logo. And it's small, but it's mighty. It has a lid that moves like that. And then when you close it, it has a little magnet and it kind of clicks. Isn't that cool? So the picks don't fall out. So this is one of the things that we're having fun creating different things to go out to our donors so that they can have something useful and beautiful to remember their donation by. And our fundraising drive is going to go on all summer. We would totally love recorded it. Just something's sound is coming over for some reason.
It was me, but I fixed it. Sorry,
there you go.
I do too many things.
That's okay. I'm going to put the link for the donation page in the chat because that's my job. I need to do that. And it's really great. We've barely talked about it at all, and we have about $500 in donations so far. So I'm really excited. It's going to be great.
Yeah, festival economics is something that sometimes is a sort of hidden behind the scenes conversation, but it is an important conversation. I think that, costs money to put on events, and everybody's trying to figure out how to put on events and pay people well and create a great service and not lose money at the same time. And it's very difficult to make things really affordable for participants and not sort of limit who can participate in the event by charging a lot, right? Which is not what we want to do. We really want this event to be accessible. We want it to create a community. And so we don't want to have to charge a super ton of money, but it does cost money to put these things on. So having a little bit of financial backing from the beginning means that we can hopefully achieve all of those goals.
Yeah. And I want to be transparent. This year, we're doing it as part of my business just to see if it'll fly. And if it does and the team wants to continue it, we'll see how we can do so as its own organization so that it's not something that ultimately one person is in charge of it. There isn't one person in charge of it. If it wasn't for Erin Mae and Judy House and Sarah Kate and the teachers who signed up for it, Karen Mueller, Tina Bergman, Karen Alley, this thing wouldn't be happening. I've learned over the years, if you want something to happen, you have to have 3 dedicated people. If you don't have 3 dedicated people who can work together, don't bother.
Agree. He's a team for sure.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Erin Mae, for being able and willing to help with all the technology and anxiety around that, and for your indefatigable researching. My goodness.
It's so fun.
I got it.
I love going down rabbit holes.
I'm just searching my mind. Women's point of view. Yeah, I have some of those. Yeah. That's my Google. That's my search engine.
I'm still in the phase of collecting all the things so I can become Google.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So we're going to end this somehow. I guess we just end the meeting.
We'll sign off, and our plan is to do something like this every couple of weeks. So you'll see one of our faces with another woman who's involved in the project a couple weeks from now.
Okay. Thanks to everybody for checking in. And we're hoping this will be able to be replayed also.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have a great Thursday.